Hello and welcome to a new episode of AWS On Air. My name is Javier Ramirez. I'm a developer advocate at AWS, and today we are going to be speaking about Amazon SageMaker Feature Store. I have with me a very special guest, Tanya Bansel. She's a senior software engineer on the team that created SageMaker Feature Store, so she has a lot of insights of what it is and what it's all about. And I was super excited when I see the announcement, when I saw the announcement first during Andy's keynote, and then yesterday again, I saw a mention during the machine learning keynote. But Tanya, maybe you can tell us what exactly is what we are launching. What is the SageMaker feature store?
Sure, yes. So the SageMaker Feature Store is a purpose-built repository where you can store and access ML features.
That's that's interesting, but maybe some people are watching and they really don't know what's an ML feature. So maybe you can tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, sure. So for machine learning use cases, features encapsulate interesting characteristics that could be used to make predictions or gather insights on your data. So feature engineering is basically this act of extracting features from raw data and transforming them into formats that are suitable for machine learning. And this is a crucial step in the entire machine learning pipeline because the right features can make model training a lot more efficient, and therefore even the results of your machine learning model can be of higher quality.
Okay, so if I'm getting this right, the feature is just the all the inputs we are giving our model to train and to do the predictions. But if I've been doing machine learning with SageMaker in the past, I was already using features. Why do I need to have a feature store?
Yeah, so we're aiming to solve three common problems that ML practitioners face today. The first problem I'll talk about is the same ML feature can be used across multiple models, multiple use cases, and business units. So, for example, let's take an ML feature representing the school rank. This can be used in a model for predicting house prices in a neighborhood. It can also be used in another model which recommends houses to customers based on previously viewed houses or where they currently live. And today there's no easy way for an ML practitioner to discover that this school rank feature has already been developed, tested, and certified as prod ready, production ready by another team in the organization already. So Amazon SageMaker Feature Store will make it easy to organize your ML features in this central repository, which will serve as a one-stop shop for ML practitioners to come and discover ML features that have already been developed.
Okay,
Um,
so oh yeah, sorry, go ahead. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, so that was the first problem that we're solving. The second one, the same ML feature can have slightly different definitions across the business. For example, temperature could be defined as Celsius or Fahrenheit, leading to confusions. And so, having this central repository for features also eliminates confusion around different definitions for similar features across the business. And the third problem is that training the model and real time inference. These are very different use cases with very different storage requirements. So, during training, models use a complete data set. This often takes hours. Models use historic data. Whereas for inference, this needs to happen in milliseconds, the real time inference, and it usually requires only a subset of the data to be available in like a low latency lookup fashion. So SageMaker Feature Store addresses both of these requirements by maintaining the same data in an offline store for training and in an online store for inference.
Cool. So that's super interesting because even if in the past I was of course using features, now I'm going to be able to share them in a better way with my team. Even if I'm not sharing with a team, even if we are just a small team or just myself, I have a way of actually documenting the feature, so I can actually put there, because you know how it is. You are building something, you are at the moment everything is on your head, and then 1 month later you try to reuse something, you don't know what you are doing. So yeah, with these annotations that you describe, I can just put there what I'm doing, which is super cool. But I also like that you are mentioning here that we can use them for both training and inference. I believe you're going to tell us more about that later. But maybe before we go into details of some of the things you can do with the feature store, I believe your team prepare a demo that they want us to see to actually have the feeling how it is to work with that. So we just jump into that.
Yeah, sounds great.
Now let's look at a quick product demo that shows us how data scientists and machine learning developers can use the SageMaker feature store. From SageMaker Studio, you can launch the feature store to browse features or create new feature groups. A feature group is a logical collection of features that corresponds to an entity. For example, you may choose to store all features related to customer transactions in a single feature group. To start building a model, a data scientist wants to reuse features that already exist instead of having to author and process a new feature each time. A data scientist can launch the feature store to look at all existing feature groups that they are authorized to view. But let's come back to this in a short while. First, let's look at creating a new feature group using the SageMaker Studio UI. To do this, we click on the Create Feature Group option, and this takes us to a 4-step workflow for creating a new feature group. Here I've already populated some of this data to show us how we can go about creating a feature group. It starts with providing the feature group name and description. The feature group names are unique within a single AWS account and region. I'm configuring this feature group for both online and offline storage. We have the option of providing a separate encryption key for the online store as well as the offline store, or using the same encryption key for both. For the offline store, we also provide the S3 bucket location, as well as the IAM role arm that has the permissions for creating new feature groups. SageMaker Feature Store also allows you to auto-create an AWS glue table to maintain the data catalog for the feature group. You can also bring your own data catalog, in which case you would provide us the catalog name, the database name, and the table name. Next, we provide the feature definitions for this feature group. The feature definitions consists of all the features that belong to this feature group, and you can add up to 2,500 features in a single feature group. You can do this in two ways in the SageMaker Studio UI, either using the JSON editor, which is what I have done here, or you can go to the table view and add features using the table view here. The feature definitions consist of the feature name and the data type for the feature. Once we have added all the features that we want to create for this feature group, we move to the next step in the workflow for defining the required features. The name of the feature to be used as record identifier name is provided here. You choose a record identifier to identify each unique entity within the feature group. In this case, I'm using user ID as the record identifier name. Here we also provide the event time feature name. As we talked about earlier, the offline store maintains all of the historical data for a feature. The event time allows the feature store to identify the specific timestamp when an event that triggers a new feature value occurred. Here I'm using the last login date as the event time feature. Next, we come to the last and optional step in this workflow, which is adding feature group tags. You can add up to 50 tags for a feature group to maintain the metadata for these features. I'm going to add a few tags here to demonstrate. So let's say we use the tags to store the name of the author, the source database, and maybe the source table, as well as the feature transformer. Here I'm just going to store the S3 URI, which contains the JSON file with the feature transformation code. And that's it. Now you can create this feature group. We see that this feature group has been created. And now we can go back to the feature store to view a list of existing feature groups. Here we see the feature group that we just created show up in the feature store. We can expand the tags here to look at the details or the metadata for the feature group. We can also double click on an existing feature group here to look at the detailed metadata for the feature group. So let's double click on this one. Here we see the feature group summary, the name, the description, and the storage configuration for the feature group. We can also see the feature group status as well as the data catalog information. We can view the feature definitions for all the features that belong to this feature group, as well as use the search feature to find a feature we might be looking for. You can also add feature group tags from here, as well as view sample queries for the optimized queries that are used for some of the typical use cases for querying data from the offline store. Earlier, we talked about how a data scientist wants to reuse an existing feature instead of having to create a new one. To find features of interest, a data scientist can discover features using the feature store, list, and search functions. So let's say that we know our fellow data scientist, Jane Doe, has authored a feature that might be of interest to us. We are storing this information using tags, so I'm going to search on tags. All right, we see that there are 4 feature groups that have been authored by our fellow data scientist, Jane. So we see this is a powerful way of being able to discover features that already exist, so data scientists don't always have to reauthor features. Now that we've seen how to create, list, search, and describe feature groups, basically all of the control plane APIs for the feature store, let us look at some of the data plane APIs that the feature store supports. Now that we have created feature groups, we will ingest data, train a model, and serve features for predictions. I'm using a notebook that trains a fraud detection model based on credit card transaction and identity data. One way to ingest data into the feature groups is to call the put record API. And here we are going to use the SageMaker Python SDK ingest function to write data to the online and the offline store. We use the ingest function with both the identity feature group as well as the transaction feature group to ingest data into the feature store. Once this data is ingested into the online store, you will have to wait for up to 15 minutes for this data to appear in the offline store. Here I've already executed the notebook, and we see that this data has now been written to the offline store, and it is available for us to start training the machine learning model. To build the training data set, we're going to use Athena. We set up the query string and query the offline store using Athena to extract the feature data for training the model. This data is then converted to CSV format and written out to the S3 location in order to train the model. Next, we're going to use the SageMaker built-in XGBoost algorithm to train the fraud detection model. And here we call the estimator class and then the fit function in order to start training the model on SageMaker. Once this training has completed, the model object is available for us to deploy, and we call the deploy function as the Python SDK to deploy the model to an endpoint. Once the model is deployed, we are going to use the SageMaker feature store to serve features using the getRecord API in order to make a prediction. We use the Python SDK to get feature values from the transaction feature group as well as the identity feature group. Here we use the feature group name and provide a record identifier value in order to get the features for the specific entity. The features are then joined in order to create the inference request. Once the inference request is created, we can then go ahead and call the predict function in order to make a prediction. Here I've already called the predict function on this model, and we see that it generates a result of 0.8 as the probability for this transaction being fraudulent. In addition to viewing the feature metadata, you can also use the SageMaker Studio UI to view feature data and explore that data. To do this, we're going to use SageMaker Data Wrangler, which you can start from the SageMaker components. With SageMaker Data Wrangler, we are going to use Amazon Athena to query the data from the offline store. Since we created the data catalog for the feature groups, we're going to select the AWS data catalog and the SageMaker Feature Store database. Once we select that, we see a list of all the feature groups that we've already created. I'm going to use an existing feature group and double click on that to see a sample of data contained in that feature group. Here I can also view the schema for the feature group. I see a list of all the feature names and the data types for the features contained in this feature group. SageMaker Data Wrangler also allows you to write your own custom queries in order to query the offline store using Amazon Athena.
Yeah, sorry, I was on mute. So yeah, so that was BDcast to doing the demo. So thank you very much for the demo, and I really like it because now it all clicks in my head when I saw actually the library with all the features and how you create the groups and you put the tags there to know exactly what you have, and then how you can actually work with the features. But there was one thing that was a bit quick for myself. I know it is slow, sorry about that, but was something she was mentioning something about ingesting data to the feature store, and I saw that on the Jupyter Notebook. But maybe you can tell us a bit more. How can I ingest my data into the feature
Yeah,
store?
for sure. So, Feature Store can ingest both streaming data and data in a batch fashion. So, for the streaming ingestion, we have a high throughput API called put record ensure high than the feature store. And the batch ingestion can be done periodically by setting up, periodic processing, SageMaker processing jobs that ingest data into the feature store once a day or on any periodic cadence. And SageMaker Feature Store also works well with Data Wrangler, which is another new capability announced at reInvent, SageMaker capability. And so you can use Data Wrangler to first author the features from your raw data and then directly ingest them into the feature store in a batch fashion as well.
Oh, that's super interesting. By the way, if you this is a shameless plug, but if you want to learn more about Data Wrangler, tomorrow there is another session on AWS On Air where we are going to be speaking exactly about that. So we've seen how you organize the features on the library. You already told us how you ingest the data into the feature store. Now I want to use them to train my models from the feature store. How does SageMaker Feature Store enable training from that library?
Yeah, so the SageMaker feature store stores data in an offline store, which is backed by the customer's S3 bucket. We've not built a custom storage solution here for the offline store, but we've built on top of S3, which we know is already heavily ingrained in our customers' existing ETL and training workflows. So, for example, SageMaker training today already integrates very well with S3. And SageMaker customers or AWS customers can also use tools like Athena to query the data which is in S3 and create their ML data set to train the model. And Feature Store automatically creates a glue database and table as well for every feature store. And this can be used in Athena as the meta store to query the data. And again, with Data Wrangler as well, we integrate with Data Wrangler not only also for the query as we saw in the demo, you can use Data Wrangler to look at a list of all the feature groups that you have and run queries and preview your data. And using that, write queries on top of it and generate additional training data sets.
Oh, that's super interesting because when I was thinking of the feature store, I was a bit wary because it's like, oh, so now I have to learn a new thing. and I have to change the way I train my models. But in this case, the feature store allows me to organize the features. But when it comes to training the data, I just go about training data exactly the same I was doing before, just using S3, just using exactly the same methods on SageMaker, so I don't have to change my workflow to add the feature store. It sounds interesting. Is that the same case for when I'm doing real-time inference?
So for real-time inference, that is a new flow that we've introduced, and we provide a low latency, high throughput API called Get Record API. So customers would now use this API to get the latest value and then feed it into their to get the prediction.
Oh, and actually, if I got this right, when I was listening to some of the keynotes, I think it was mentioning something like single-digit millisecond of latency when I'm using the real-time store.
That
That's
sounds right, yeah.
that's crazy. Like single-digit millisecond on machine learning. That's like it blew my mind. It's like I just wanted to confirm it was a mistake or just just mishearing. But yeah, really impressive. So one thing that came to my head because both on the demo and then you mentioned that we can actually use Athena to query the data we have in the feature store. And on Athena we support a few data types. So which kind of data types are you supporting right now on the feature store?
We've started off with string, integer, and fractional data types on Feature Store.
Oh, cool. That sounds like like very comprehensive because in the end, a lot of models you can just train with that. So that's super interesting. And something that I'm sure people watching are going to be asking themselves is like, okay, it sounds quite cool, but every time we are speaking about data, a concern is always security. How secure is my data? So what are you doing around that?
Sure. So we support customer managed KMS keys for both the online store and the offline store. And you can choose to provide different KMS keys for online and offline as well. And if you do not provide a customer managed KMS key when you set up the feature group, the data will all still be encrypted at rest using AWS owned or AWS managed KMS keys, so data at rest is always encrypted. And another aspect for security is all of the existing IAM controls still work around controlling who has access to the feature group. So you can create your IAM roles and policies to restrict access, say the get record, and put authorized users within your organization.
Well, that's quite impressive because actually, if I understand that properly, there is no way I can store things unencrypted. So no matter what, I can choose to provide my own keys, but otherwise, AWS will automatically use schemas, so I can be extra sure no matter what, data is never going to be on the clear store. Cool. That's
Absolutely.
yeah. I'm sure that's going to put like mind's address when we are talking about that. So I believe we covered a lot of things today, and we are already approaching the end of the interview. So I would just like to invite you if anyone wants to try the Amazon SageMaker Feature Store. Where should they go to try it out?
So you'll find here a link to our blog post that we released. You'll find our product documentation, and that will also lead you to a sample notebook that is available in the SageMaker GitHub public repo. Out and start playing.
Nice, because if it's actually on GitHub, that should be super easy to use, and it's always it always gives me confidence when I can find something which is outside of AWS, so I can make sure I can share easily with other people. It was super interesting for me talking to you, Tanya Vancel. So thank you so much for your time, and yeah, I hope you have a good time, and yeah, thank you everyone for listening.
Yeah, this was a great avenue to share about the feature store. Super excited for everyone to go try it out. Thanks,
Lovely.
Javier. Mhm.
Congratulations on the launch, and enjoy the rest of your event.
Thank you.